At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Lane.
Okay, first comment is from Mr. Joshua Melvin of Dearborn. Comment is, please use your soundest judgment when determining when to return students to school. While other districts may simply try to keep up with the Joneses, Dearborn has the opportunity to champion the same science and statistics that we urge our own students to apply when supporting an argument. What a teachable moment. Please consider that what makes Dearborn unique, its vibrant culture, close-knit families, and communal atmosphere has also made it extremely susceptible to infection. Which is more prudent, to rush back and suffer setback after setback as quarantine set in, or to stick with the decision to return only when it is safe for everyone impacted by that return? There are parents, teachers, and students who would be severely harmed by a premature return, not to mention the demoralizing aspect of shutting down and returning multiple times. In times of uncertainty, while many suspect those who are quick to act to be leaders, often it is those who use their time and resources wisely, embodying strength, integrity, and conviction in their prior decisions, whom time will tell to be the wisest. Thank you for your steadfast dedication to what you do, to do what is right for parents, teachers, and students. We are all counting on you to make the wisest decision. Mrs. Yahia of Dearborn. As a parent of 4, I am not ready to send my children back to school. The positivity rates are still at a high risk in Dearborn. When I believe the schools are safe, I will allow my students to go back to school in person. Mrs. Abigail Hetner of Dearborn. I think it is very important for us students to go back. I think it's very important for us students to go back to school, because even though the online setup is very organized, it's not the same as learning in person, and it's harder to absorb information for all ages. What I can say from me and my fellow high school students is being online affects our mental health greatly. We need that daily social interaction in order to improve our mental health. Lastly, me and my fellow seniors would really like to try and be in person as many days as possible for our senior year. But I understand if you decide not to, if you think that is too unsafe. Ms. Mary Gass of Dearborn. The disbursement of Wayne RESA enhancement millage monies has changed over the course of the last 5 years. From the original press release when it passed and the district was given $6 million plus. Currently, how is the enhancement millage money being spent so Dearborn citizens can make an informed decision when voting on November 3rd? Is there a link on the district webpage where we can view enhancement millage funding distribution spreadsheet? I don't know if Dr. Maleko wants to.
Yeah, we have that information we can get. David, I think David and Tom put that together, so we do have that.
Okay, so there's the answer. Next speaker, Avalon A. Moreau of Dearborn. We have just experienced the greatest spike in cases since April 17th. Dearborn is the highest in cases, second only to Detroit. A school environment would be abhorrently unsafe for everyone involved. Mrs. Susan Miller Anderson of Dearborn. I wish to express my concerns over bringing students and teachers back into school buildings. I realize that virtual classes are not ideal. However, teachers are working very hard to ensure that they are in regular contact with their students and are providing them with meaningful instruction and work. Students are adjusting to the new system and are interacting with their teachers and one another. I watch the numbers of new COVID cases in Dearborn and Wayne County daily. Those numbers are not encouraging. As we bring people together inside, the numbers will only get worse, particularly without appropriate PPE and HVAC filters and improvements. I believe the best thing for our students, teachers, and other district personnel is to continue virtual education for the remainder of the semester. This action will provide stable guidance, will avoid liability, and will keep our educational community safe. It is the smart thing to do. Thank you for your consideration. Mazen Mirza of Dearborn. The current Schoolology plan is horrible. It offers no reminders, nor does it outline assignments properly. Between the combination of Google Classroom and iLearn applications, which every student and teacher has used, there is so much more clarity and ease of use. Schoolology disregards some basic learning features in place of comfortability. However, the ironic thing is that everything is in place to make the students feel more comfortable has been disabled by the district. There is a reason colleges such as HFC use iLearn to teach. Out of my 5 teachers, only 2 have managed to utilize our time properly and teach us. The only key difference between them and other teachers is that they know how to use Schoolology. Just to be clear, I have not been learning anything except that for what those 2 teachers have been doing. That's about 4 to 6 hours of learning per week when it should be double at a minimum. To put that into perspective, one 7:20 till 2:15 day offers more learning than a week of Schoolology. Grades will not reflect this disparity because of cheating. However, no one is learning anything and everyone's time is being wasted, teachers and students alike. Wafa Bazzi of Dearborn says, to whom it may concern, I am a mother of a kindergartner who also happens to work the front line in fighting against COVID-19. Torn between the decision of possibly exposing my family to COVID and sending my daughter to school and seeing the mental and emotional toll online learning has had on my daughter is indescribable. I truly believe there is a way to safely send our students back, if not fully, at least partially, to give our young students the best education possible. Learning remote for such young students that cannot read yet and have such a short attention span is simply unrealistic. I am constantly near my daughter, assisting her and keeping her on track, which is not usually like her to need such assistance. I cannot even imagine the students that don't have the type of constant support. It's absolutely discouraging and hinders any room for learning and growth. My daughter's teacher is doing a phenomenal job at taking such a difficult task. However, I truly believe the district can find a way to get our students back safely. Thank you for all the hard work you are putting in. Mrs. Joseph Farrell of Dearborn, what do you see as the challenges facing students and how do you intend to meet these challenges? Nasser Sharif of Dearborn, as a community member and parent of a preschool age son, I'm very concerned about the board considering a hybrid return for the community. I watch the numbers for Dearborn and see how disproportionately high they are compared to the neighboring cities. I see overall people hosting large indoor gatherings, taking no precautions. I hear of people becoming infected only to keep it to themselves instead of sharing the news so others can be more cautious. And this is getting worse with time, not better. As a parent and community member, I expressly condemn any consideration of returning to school beyond the learning labs at this time. Mrs. Claudia Belleau of Dearborn, these children need to move forward with some sort of face-to-face learning, even if it is hybrid. They are missing out on the benefits of actually being in the classroom. Mr. Jacob Berry of Dearborn, COVID rate in Dearborn is too high. Stop looking at the county in general. Do not go back to school. Mr. Hassan Ajam of Dearborn. Thank you to the board and the superintendent for your hard work in trying to keep kids safe. We know it's not an easy task with to listen to so many complaints. Please consider these points before making a decision for face-to-face instruction. Number 1, flu virus season is upon us. Bringing kids and staff back too early may lead to a future closure. Number 2, how do we know the disinfectant protocols for the schools? Are the bathrooms going to be cleaned after each student? Number 3, how can we keep kids safe and socially distanced when we have overcrowded schools classrooms? Number 4, for kids who do go back face to face, will there be a way to integrate the virtual learning platforms? For example, will the teacher be live streaming from the lesson for those at home due to quarantine, or if hybrid, it is not their day to be in person? 5, if kids are going to be sent home and you want them symptom-free for a specific amount of days, these days absent will add up. Those kids should be able to log in to the virtual platform. Number 6, when considering a hybrid option, please take into consideration working parents. It would be difficult to bring a student in for 3 hours only. It should be a full day of instruction. Oscar Alabasi of Dearborn. Dear school board members, I am writing to you to voice my concerns regarding the consideration of a hybrid model for return to school. One of the biggest concerns of mine are the fact that in Dearborn, we have a disproportionately high number of COVID cases among other communities. We have not had a few weeks of numbers in the single digits like other communities of our size. Our numbers are also not reflecting the amount of people who are not testing for personal reasons, such as uninsured individuals cannot pay for the testing. I also am concerned that the fact that we do not know what the effects of COVID in the long run are concerning for me, and I am not willing to bet my child's life on it. I have opted in virtual learning all year long for my middle school child. However, my other child who is in Henry Ford Early College, what I was told virtual learning was not an option. I find that unfair. Despite the arguments of how the hybrid will relieve some parents and allow them to go back to work, the issue with childcare is still an issue with this model. Parents are not able to go back to work a full 5 days as they will not be in school full time. Also,
I was going to make a motion to extend the meeting.
Support? Anybody support? We have a motion supported by Jim Thorpe. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Lane, yes. McDonald,
Yes?
Need,
Yes.
Moseb. Trustee Moseb? Looks like he might have.
He said
may
yes.
not be at his
Yes, he
computer,
said
maybe.
yes.
A second.
We got 3 witnesses. He said yes. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing it. Petchlokoff,
Yes.
Thorpe,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes, motion carries. Please continue, Madam Secretary.
Okay, this is back to Oscar Alabasi of Dearborn. Also, the quality of hybrid model will not provide the quality instruction that the online is providing. It will be hard for staff to do both virtual and in person for many reasons. The amount of instruction and interactions among peers, teachers will decrease for all students. How is that going to help? Children thrive in consistency and structure. Last week, the schedules were changed due to count day and there was a lot of confusion. Why are we still contemplating more change? Why not stick to one plan and give it time to work so that we can reevaluate and improve rather than making quick decisions on the fly because of the pressure you are getting from community members? How can children learn while going back to school in person when feeling unsafe, having to social distance and wear a mask? How can we parents feel comfortable sending our children back in the midst of flu season when you cannot even distinguish between the symptoms and hospitals are preparing for more cases and hospitalizations? Please reconsider the hybrid model and keep in mind what's in the children's best interest. Let's not add to the grief and trauma we have all been through for the past 6 months. Jesse Rafferty of Dearborn. Per the suggestion of the EPA, can the administration show and communicate its findings on whether each building has HVAC systems that comply with the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers standard 62.1 ventilation requirement at the system level and in the breathing zones of all occupied spaces? Ms. Adrienne Golis of Dearborn. I am concerned about our district being a hybrid model of learning for all students. I feel as though the district need not rush this decision and needs to keep all students, staff, and their respective families in mind as we make decisions. Learning labs have only begun a week ago, and teachers and students alike are still getting used to this specific format. I do not believe that the COVID-19 positivity rate in Dearborn specifically has dipped low enough to consider having hundreds of students in buildings, even if it is not full-time. Michelle Leonard of Dearborn. Excuse me. COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes across the globe and into our homes. The school board decision to continue with virtual learning was well thought through and guided by science. There is too much to learn about the virus still, but we know unequivocally that it can be deadly. There is the potential for long-term health consequences, particularly cardiovascular consequences. There is the possibility for airborne spread, and children seem to be key in understanding spread. An August 2020 article in Pediatrics includes a study by Yonkers and colleagues from Mass General Hospital, which showed that the viral load of children with COVID within the first 2 days of symptom was higher than that of adults hospitalized with severe disease. Moreover, a recent study, September 2020, from the Princeton's Environmental Institute, Johns Hopkins University, and UC Berkeley showed that children and younger adults were quite efficient in spreading the virus, especially to their peers. When you put this together, can you see that kids, even with few symptoms, may be highly contagious and put their peers and subsequently their own households at risk? It is important to maintain the quality of education that our school system prides itself on, but at what cost? Dearborn students, teachers, and parents have been working hard to continue learning through a virtual platform. We can see that other school districts across the state have opened, and some have already had to switch back to virtual learning. Should the transition to a hybrid in-person model happen, there are several factors to consider. One, are our older buildings really able to handle the quantity of air purifying that would need to happen to reduce risk? Number two, a model based on half days would allow for more students in the building without time to let aerosols dissipate, and a model where the building would be empty or overnight may be safest. Three, have Dearborn numbers of COVID cases, which have continued to be consistently higher than other cities in Wayne County, improved, although we are still in double digits most days because of kids learning from home? Four, in our schools, we also have teachers and staff who may be in high-risk groups that need to be factored into the equation. It is unfortunate that at times the pandemic has become politicized and created greater rift among our community. But I would encourage the board to please do not make the decision about whether to reopen schools lightly, as our community has suffered tremendously already. And then she gives the website for the Princeton study, and it is princeton.edu news, largest COVID-19 contact tracing study date finds children spread evidence. Lena Hamoud of Dearborn. I heard about the hybrid learning, which I considered as an option when they said everything would be hybrid by October 1st, 2020. I come to find out they're only working with kids that place in the lowest 30 percentile of NWEA testing. Had I known this was going to happen, I would have done 100% online learning. They're much more structured. Choosing this hybrid learning really isn't an adequate education for my 5-year-old. Kristen Pfeiffer of Dearborn. My son has been present in virtually learning. How will you handle it for children who have not, so that it does not hinder or push back the progress of the students who have been participating regularly? Thank you. Mrs. Zainab Fakhreddin of Dearborn. Too soon to open schools. Anani Tawil of Dearborn. The city of Dearborn is not ready to return to schools. There are many irresponsible citizens who do not follow the rules of social distancing and wearing a mask in places of business. If the kids were to return to school, I feel like half days would be safer. The kids wouldn't have to eat lunch in school and would be exposed to airborne or all other germs. If adults can't follow rules, we cannot expect children of young ages to do so and wash and sanitize their hands regularly. Ms. Molinaro of Dearborn. With the current cases in the state of Michigan at the highest risk point since April, it is projected that we are entering a second wave of this pandemic. Students need consistency and stability. With the great likelihood of students, staff testing positive in the near future, would it not make more sense to remain virtual and maintain stability as opposed to the constant back and forth of quarantine when a positive case is identified? I recognize that remote learning is not easy or convenient, but we must put health and safety at the forefront. It is irresponsible to consider face-to-face instruction at this time. Ms. Crystal Saeed of Dearborn. I would like to start by saying I'm thankful for our wonderful teachers and administrators. They work very hard to help our students, many working in the evening and on weekend just to prepare for the week ahead. Teachers and principals are getting all of the frustration from the parents, and they don't deserve that. I agree with the district to do for virtual learning. The cases are still very high, and as of today, Michigan was put at high risk again. If you want to do only elementary students in person, how does that make sense? Younger ones touch everything and don't have the same self-control as the older kids. They will still be able to carry the virus home to parents, other siblings, and grandparents. If you are not confident in all of the kids being in school, why risk our little ones? The other main problem is that our kids being on Zoom from 8:55 until 11:45 a.m. and back at 12:55 p.m. daily. Most adults can't even sit and stay focused for that long. I think the teachers should be given the trust to run their classrooms as they see fit. Each child has different learning needs, and not one person making the decision knows their students like their teacher. We are asked to trust our teachers and teach our kids 7 hours a day when in person. We ask you to trust our teachers during virtual learning instead of handing them schedules to follow. Lastly, you hear about all the different committee meetings and talking about what to do. How about a committee that has a student, parent, and teacher from each school? That way the truth is being told and light is being shed on real issues. Mrs. Julie Wojciechowicz of Dearborn. Thank you to the school board members for all their time, effort, and thoughtfulness, especially over the last 8 months. I realize you've been placed in precarious situations with constantly changing information where you'll never be able to make everyone happy. I appreciate how you lead by staying informed and making decisions in the best interest of others. I have 2 requests. Please explain why the board uses positivity rates for COVID cases, which is dependent upon volume of testing, in lieu of total cases or cases per 1,000 population in Wayne County, Dearborn, and surrounding communities. These new metrics would provide normalized data, which would better illustrate trends. 2, in addition to all of the other factors the board is considering, please consider these 4. A, some of our schools have high volumes of students and social distancing will be extremely difficult. B, we're heading into cold weather, windows will be closed, as well as the flu season in an environment where many of our school buildings are older, have boiler heat, and don't have infrastructure that allow good air circulation or air cleaning. C, last week, Michigan was taken from a medium risk to a high risk for coronavirus outbreak as cases increase statewide. COVID Act Now Group 10-8 and experienced the highest single day positivity rate increase since April 7th, 1,522 cases since Friday. D, COVID can be contracted both through the air and on surfaces. A recent study shows the virus can live on some surfaces, steel, mobile phones, etc., for up to 28 days. Virus survival rate dropped as temperatures rose from 68 degrees to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Also understand that more research is needed since the precise role of surface transmission, the degree of surface contact, and the amount of virus required for infection is yet to be determined. Mrs. Baydoun of Dearborn. Due to the recent number of rising cases where Michigan stands as a whole, I do not feel comfortable sending the kids to school at this time. Please consider this to protect not only our students, but the staff and their families equally. Thank you. Mona Masra of Dearborn. Thank you. Excuse me. Dear board members, I am writing to you as a current staff member and parent of Dearborn Public School students to express great concern about the reopening of schools. Although the Wayne County positivity rate has been below 5%, the 5% requirement, our daily cases in Dearborn have been on the uptake in the last couple of weeks, and Saturday marked the greatest spike in the state in daily cases since April. With flu season on the horizon, a decision to return to school could potentially be catastrophic. Many places are seeing second waves begin, and by returning to school so soon, we are bound to become a super spreader event. Additionally, we do not even have enough data from Learning Labs to support a transition to hybrid. Learning Labs was supposed to give us the test run to ensure our safety protocols can mitigate risk and prevent great spread. However, we have only had Learning Labs open for 1 week and have not given them time to see what hiccups and issues arise and what level of spread we may see. The district had promised a gradual return with Learning Labs as a first step, but if the board votes to push forward a hybrid reopening, this will have been a very disingenuous statement. If you truly want a gradual reopen, then you must give the Learning Labs more than just 1 week before using that milestone to push forward in the restart. The Learning Labs should be open for several weeks and data gathered and analyzed and used as a part of future discussion for reopening. We have the lives of children, staff, and families on the line, and no decision should be rushed or made based on convenience or outside pressures. The safety and well-being of all should be put at the forefront. In order to truly put students first, the district must make sure that our teachers and staff members can teach and provide a suitable environment to foster learning. If staff feels unsafe, stressed, or anxious, then they will not be able to provide a healthy and suitable learning environment that fosters growth and achievement. And in the end, we all lose. Furthermore, there have been incidents that have shaken my trust in the district's commitment to be open and transparent and work to protect staff members and react to safety concerns. Not being informed of cases within our buildings or the district in a timely manner degrades trust and portrays an attempt at secrecy from the district. If this is happening to staff, then how can I trust that I will be informed as a parent when there are cases in my children's schools? Additionally, I have heard of an alarming incident in which a parent brought their child to school for testing while knowingly having tested positive for COVID-19 only a couple of days prior. This parent lied and knowingly exposed staff. The district's use of an honor system is flawed and will lead to more unnecessary exposure to students and staff. If this is occurring now, I can only fear what will occur when we are back to in-person learning. How can these situations be handled? How can the district protect the health and safety of staff and students when situations like these arise? When there is a lack of transparency and communication, it is hard to have faith that we will be kept safe. Our lives are in your hands. Our children's lives are in your hands. Please delay the return to hybrid.
Secretary Lane, let me
Mrs.
interrupt you here for a
Ilham-
second.
Yes.
I'm gonna handle the motion to, take a deep breath. I'll handle the motion to extend the meeting. Chair will entertain a
Okay.
motion to extend the meeting another 15 minutes.
Support.
So we have a motion by trustee Thorpe, supported by trustee Moses. Mary Lane? Is that a yes?
Yeah, she said yes.
Yes.
Okay, trustee McDonald?
Yes.
Trustee Mead?
Yes.
Trustee Moses?
Yes.
Trustee Petrikov?
Yes.
I'm trying to go slow here, Mayor, trustee Lane. Trustee Thorpe?
Yes.
That's a slow yes. Trustee Barry, yes. Motion passes unanimously. Again, Secretary Lane, thank you for doing this. I know it's not easy, but if you can, please continue.
Okay. Thank you for the break to my throat. Ms. Ilham
Much needed.
Get her some water.
Miss of Dearborn. I would like to be online because it's less of a risk. Mrs. Chelsea Jankowiak of Dearborn. Opening schools safely. For the unseeable future, we do not know when schools can reopen safely for in-person learning. We also are dealing with classrooms that are too large and limited staff, as well as potentially losing students and thus funding for future years to private schools. Knowing and factoring budget, safety, and staffing, I propose the immediate cancellation of Learning Labs and propose an alternative since I was unable to find the other 3 posted online. To my understanding, the Learning Labs surface areas are being cleaned, but are we still rotating kids and staff into the same rooms? Instead, we should have 10-person limit classrooms that do not mix or share rooms. The teacher can have one room and aides can take on the additional room if it is needed. In order to switch back to in-school learning, the parents and guardians must submit an application for approval. They should only be accepted if they are unable to have someone home for their child when needed, or if the child is severely struggling in the remote environment. I expect grade school to have the most kids in need of returning to on-site and high school having the least. Daily temperature checks and such would still be required for anyone coming in person, as well as deep cleaning. The idea would be teachers still present and teach the same way as they currently do, but would be there during the asynchronous times to assist anyone struggling. Aides would also assist and help keep the kids focused as needed. This is Sophia Mohammed of Dearborn. As an educator and parent of 2 students at Hague Elementary, I would like to begin by thanking the board for giving the parents the opportunity to voice their concerns. I also want to express how much appreciation my family and I have for the endless support, time, and care that our Hague administration, teachers, and staff have devoted to ensure that the transition to virtual learning is as seamless as possible for their families. It has been disheartening to see how the topic of a return back to school plan has created such heat amongst our community. We are all dealing with our own battles and struggles against this unprecedented pandemic. However, optimism and a healthy attitude is key. It reflects on our students and their performance as they face a new way of learning. There is no right or wrong to this debate at hand. As an educator and parent, ideally, the best delivery of instruction and peer interaction for our students is in person. That goes unsaid. However, when a pandemic faces us all, we must make the best of our current situation and think of what matters most, the safety and success of our students, their family, and our staff. I urge the board to consider the current status our state is in before placing a time to transition back to school in person. Michigan is now categorized as high risk, and our cases are reaching high numbers that reflect those that peaked at the start of the pandemic. To ensure the best success for our students and staff, their safety holds priority. I have high hope that at one point we will all agree that with the necessary safety protocols and precaution, our students of all ages will be able to return to school. However, at this moment in time during this pandemic, to ensure the best for our students, we must follow data and science. The peaking numbers and warnings of a second wave do not create a promising vision for our students and staff returning in person. Putting the safety of our students, staff, and families at risk, their success is at stake. I hope that as a community, we continue to uplift each other with respect and optimism, and remember, with a positive attitude, we will get through this. We are all in this together. Mr. Ahmed Saeed, 179 days. That's how long my family and I managed to stay COVID-free. 3 weeks after the school year began, my mother, an employee of the district, tested positive after working in her building. All social distancing guidelines and protocols as recommended by Dearborn schools were followed, but still the virus reached her. My mother was quarantined in her bedroom for 2 weeks. For 14 days, we did not see my mother. There was nothing worse than knowing that she was alone and suffering, except for the fact that she, in turn, watched the rest of the family suffer. She had terrible symptoms that made her feel as though she were dying, symptoms that put her in the hospital, as did me, my father, and my 13-year-old sister. I was in the hospital for 5 days, and my father was there for 11. He was one machine away from being on a ventilator. He could barely speak, but still he told me he feared he was dying. My father laid on what he thought was his deathbed for 11 days as a direct result of staff member reporting to work for Dearborn Public Schools. So when I hear that Dearborn Public Schools is considering opening the buildings again, I am disgusted, appalled, and disappointed. What's worse is that parents are complaining that they cannot do it anymore and they are exhausted. Well, I've just spent the last month fighting for my life alongside my mother, father, and sister. We are exhausted. We were hospitalized. We had pneumonia. We had all the symptoms of the global pandemic. We wouldn't wish this on anyone, but opening the schools to thousands of children is simply a welcome sign for the virus. If one person infected 3 others in my home, I cannot imagine the families who have senior citizens, infants, and family members with health complications. So I'm asking on behalf of the students, the staff, and all of their families, do not open the schools. Do not allow the mothers, fathers, grandparents, and siblings of your students and staff to be hospitalized. If the Dearborn Public Schools slogan is truly students first, then I ask that you stand true to it. Do not open the schools, do not take the risk. Ms. Altiari, if the schools reopen, I plan on joining the VLP for the entire year. Is there a waiting list, and does this mean that my child may not have a class for a period of time? If so, what do I do in the meantime? Mrs. Farah Bazzi. I am a parent in the community with 2 children who currently attend Oakman Elementary and McCullough Eunice School. I am very concerned with reopening. Please consider virtual school going until schools can reopen safely and full. Cases are now rising in the state, and we will see a rise in cases in Dearborn, even with schools closed. There is no vaccine or no cure for this virus yet. Both my husband and my 10-year-old daughter have asthma, which means they are at higher risk for getting very sick from COVID-19. Virtual online learning is working for my children and us parents. Please consider that when the schools can safely open completely for all students and stay virtual until that time. Thank you for your time. Elaine Khalil says, Are school going to open up to students? Mohammed Talul, please don't open schools yet. The virus is still out there. Stacy Garcia, the hybrid options look complicated. I have 3 children in DPS. Many families have children in multiple schools. Will they have different days, times when they go to school? How can people do this who work? The parents who choose to send their kids back want them back. Other school districts are back at school 5 full days. Why can't Dearborn go back full time? Mrs. Scarlett DeVries. I believe it's in students' best interest to go back in person as soon as possible. In my experience, online school and quarantine has taken a major toll on my mental health, and I am having a hard time keeping up with online school. It's my senior year, and I'd like to go back to school. Ms. Mona says, truly appreciate all of the efforts made by everyone. No decision is an easy decision, and I am aware that there are many factors that are being considered. Virtual learning may not be the best option for learning, but it is the safest. Going back in person and then shutting down every other week, alternating schedules, etc., is just way too hectic for children to process and working parents to accommodate. Virtual learning has provided students with safety and stability. Children have worked hard to get into the routine they are in now, and teachers have worked really hard to get them there. Asking teachers and students to change their entire routine now, when there is still a great risk, is asking for chaos. I understand that this change needs to happen at some point, and eventually everyone will have to go through the transition. But asking teachers and students to do it now is wrong. Let them finish off their semester and then see where our country, state, and nation is in regards to COVID. Unless you can promise the community that protocols will be enforced in every single building, in every single classroom, the discussion of in-person should not even be addressed. I know there is no right answer here that will please everyone, but if you simply put students first and staff first, then safety first is a given. Thank you for all of your efforts. Please consider keeping the children virtual for now. Mr. Mohammed says, I don't get why the district is in a hurry to open schools. We need to think about the kids and teachers as well. We have to take into consideration safety for all, and not just because parents want their kids back in school. We need to think of teachers and kids' health and safety. We should take it slow so we don't have to close again. We need to have consistency for kids, but do things slow and correctly. It takes 2 weeks for the data to come. We just started in-person learning labs 2 days a week, so we should wait 2 weeks to see how things go. If all goes well, then increase in-person labs to 5 days a week. Wait 2 weeks if there is any outbreaks. If all goes well, then bring back kindergarten and first grade and wait 2 weeks. Then bring back second, third graders and wait 2 weeks, and so on. We need to look at our outbreaks and not just what some people want. Safety and health comes first before wants. Thank you. Nabil Mahdi, please, my question is, how kids are allowed to play in our school playground and parks on a daily basis, and even on public parks, and go to restaurants, and other states and countries found their way to control it in schools, and our city and state did not figure it out yet. This is Amy Fredkin. I know we're all in a rush to get back to pre-COVID living and schooling. With spectator sports, movie theaters, and reopening soon, there is a lot of talk about getting students back to face-to-face learning. However, these reopenings are based on political pressure, not public health and safety. I believe Dr. Fauci when he says things are going to get much worse if we reopen too soon. If the COVID numbers support our students to return to in-person learning, I believe we should do it slowly and carefully. Start with learning labs for a month or two. If that goes well, let the elementary back on a hybrid schedule. If that goes well, then let the secondary schools go back on a hybrid schedule. And make sure you have comprehensive plans for cleaning and contact tracing to reduce the spread of COVID. Also, before reopening, schools need to have an in-depth plan for entering and exiting, changing classes, lunch, and transportation to and from school. These plans for each school need to be shared with parents and students in advance so the parents and students can raise questions and offer input.
Secretary Lane, let me interrupt you guys, please.
Yep.
Chair will entertain a motion to extend the meeting another 15 minutes.
So moved.
We have a
Support.
motion
Support.
We have a motion moved by trustee Thorpe, supported by trustee Petrikov. I'll take the roll call. Trustee Lane,
Yes.
trustee McDonald,
Yes.
Yes.
trustee Mead,
Yes.
trustee Mosib,
Yes.
trustee Petrikov,
Yes.
trustee Thorpe,
Yes.
and President Barry, yes. Motion is unanimously approved. Please continue, Secretary Lane.
Oh, just to encourage you all, we only have 3 more pages of these 18. Okay, Mrs. Stephanie Butler. It's hard to find a starting point for all I wish I could convey. First of all, I would like to state for the record that as far as my 5-year-old son, who should be attending Duval, but instead attends school at my kitchen table, if you expect me to send him to school to be in a mask all day, it just isn't going to happen. He will not, under any circumstances, be abused in such a ridiculous manner by any of you. For my second point, I received my weekly call regarding my 10th grade at Edsel regarding her failing 3 of her classes. I stated, as I always do, that she has to be in person in a learning environment to succeed in school. I asked again about the in-person learning labs. At this point, I was put on an email chain with the 3 teachers with whom she is failing, only to get 1 response back. I was offered to bring her in by this 1 teacher for 30 minutes. Let me repeat myself here. My daughter is failing 3 classes, and I was offered 30 minutes of that teacher's time. When I emailed back how ridiculous that was, I got the Dearborn answer of, well, we must have time to properly sanitize before another student comes in. So let me get this straight. My daughter, who I pay high taxes for her education, is left to fend for herself in this absolutely insane manner in which Dearborn schools. You care about the politics of it all and not the students or parents who pay your bills. Just remember that you work for the people and you would all do well to leave your politics out of my children's education. What a sad day in America, let alone Dearborn, for allowing our children to fall on their faces as you have. But man, those football games are loud and clear. They have sent a very clear message to the parents in this community. And if you think any differently, you are fooling only yourselves and each other. Mrs. Malak Tarhini. What changed from the beginning of the year until now to think of opening the schools? And why don't you give people another chance to sign for virtual learning so that you can open for the people who want to send their kids? I'm one of the parents who was confused about the virtual learning program, so I trusted you wouldn't open schools unless it was 100% safe. And I'm not sending my kids to school in any condition if the situation is still like this. You guys are putting pressure on me and the parents who don't think it's safe yet. Mrs. Alama Ahmed, given the track record of universities and school districts that have opened across the country with almost immediate COVID outbreaks within weeks of opening, it is appalling that the school board is considering putting our children at risk with the beginning of flu season upon us. I'm an adult and my workplace is not even considering reopening offices until next summer. Consider the students who have immunocompromised family members, not to mention that the VLP has been unorganized and unacceptable quality. I sincerely hope that the district will put students' lives and their health first during this pandemic with unforeseen consequences instead of choosing to ignore those examples that came before us. These people, there are several now that did not sign their names. Concerned educator wrote, so here we are. We've had multiple positive cases in Dearborn since learning labs have begun. The news is defining it as an outbreak, and yet the district is still pushing to reopen. I understand remote learning is not ideal. I understand it isn't the perfect learning situation, but it's functioning better than we ever planned, and yet the district is still pushing to reopen. We just had a case at my building last week as a learning lab student tested positive a day after coming to lab, and yet the district is pushing to reopen. I have a spouse with an autoimmune disease. My spouse is immunocompromised, and every time I come to the building and return home, I'm afraid I could be bringing back a disease that could make her incredibly ill or worse. And yet the district is still pushing to reopen. Maybe it's time the district to temporarily shift their motto from students first to safety first. Thank you for your time. Resident X writes, what is the protocol in terms of positive tests? What is the plan for students to return if hybrid is the direction? What is the current positivity rate? How is it determined, monitored? How will you ensure mask wearing is enforced? If someone must self-quarantine, what is the procedure? If the student is not in building for the day, how will they still do work? Anonymous writes, as a DPS teacher with a child in Dearborn Public Schools as well, I am eager for schools to open up. However, I worry about the pressure that parents are putting on the district and the board to reopen schools without so much as even asking what safety protocols are in place to protect the staff and students. I'm also concerned that there have been more COVID cases among staff in our district than we are being told about. We keep hearing about transparency, but we are not seeing it. This worries me as a teacher, and it worries me even more as a parent. Parents should not be for or against reopening schools until they have all of the information they need. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and parents are pushing for buildings to reopen because they're truthfully just tired of having their kids at home. As a teacher, I miss my students and I want my child back in the classroom, but not at the expense of my health or my family's health. These same parents who praised us last spring are the same parents who are acting like teachers shouldn't have a say in whether schools reopen or not when we are on the front lines in this case. Parents who chose and continue to choose to attend parties, to live their lives like COVID doesn't exist, not to mask, are in the majority of the parents who are pressuring the district and board to reopen schools. These are the same parents who are guaranteed to send their children to school with symptoms because they want their child out of their homes once and for all. How can we as teachers be sure that we will be safe when schools reopen and there has been no realistic, understandable plan, nor has there been transparency when it comes to real numbers of infected staff? Ms. writes, hello, I'm a parent of a kindergartner at Howe. If you decide on opening, my wish would be split classes, 2 days in person, 3 home continuing. How can they have been in for the in-person portion? Thank you. Then there's a name and I'm not going to read that. I thought this was not unnamed. Do not wish to say is the next commenter. It is my hope that the board acts in the best interest of our children and teachers at this time, which is to continue virtual learning in Dearborn. Face-to-face districts all over Michigan are seeing outbreaks and are being closed and reopened frequently as they try to control outbreaks and appease parents who want staff to risk their lives to bring children back into the classroom when it's simply not necessary. Seeing pictures pop up across Facebook of our very own sports teams huddled together with no masks, even when they're not actively running, is disheartening and shows that our community is not ready for this step. Social distancing is not being done. Meanwhile, in my own classroom, we started allowing a limited number of children to come in person, and I had to constantly remind the students in my room to wear their masks properly. Not only this, but we were assured by our administrators that ancillary staff members would come around and clean door handles and light switches. Instead, the only precautionary cleaning that is done in our classroom is done by us teachers with products we were not properly trained to how to use, and whatever is done by custodial staff after hours, it is unnecessary. It is unnecessary to take all of these risks when our students have adjusted to the online format, but even if they may experience some struggles. We will have struggles to the online format, even if they may experience, we will have struggles no matter which plan we follow and at least with virtual learning, the struggles are not accompanied by risk to our health and safety. Thank you to all of the board members who have taken these issues and considered all opinions with their whole heart and mind. And I believe that's the end of the comments.
Great, thank you very much, Secretary Lane. We appreciate you doing this.